Welcome to Ask the Funeral Director with Mike Voyajakis. Brought to you by Voyage Funeral Home and Crematorium. Now, here's your host.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Ask the Funeral Director with Mike Voyajakis. I'm your host, Brad Wilder. Great to have so many great people just dropping in tonight and stopping by. We've got a great show all ready to go tonight. We've got a really good video that's going to, uncover some disturbing vaccine side effects that you might not be aware of. Plus, we're going to get into Ask the Funeral Director, and there's quite a lot of questions to get to tonight, so it's going to be a very well-drawn-out show with tons of information to help anybody who's got questions about the funeral business. Stand by. It's all coming up right here on Ask the Funeral Director after this.
At the Cork and Flame, we're always cooking and ready with the finest for all our customers any time of day or night. From breakfast brunch to lunch and dinner, steak and seafood to ribs and more. The Cork and Flame Fine Dining. Always fresh, with fabulous desserts and a narration of the urban landscape, plus a passion for quality food. Eat, drink, chill. Cork and Flame, 3106 Portage Avenue. There's no hurry, so sit back and relax.
Good evening and welcome to Ask the Funeral Director. I'm glad to have everybody here. There's a lot of people just kind of getting online right now. Mike, welcome back. It's been a heck of a week for you in the last 7 days.
Ring my bell, 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 ring my bell.
I know of a few people who have rang your bell over the last couple of weeks.
It's been a crazy couple of weeks. Starting out with, we'll say hi to some people first. Number one on the show tonight, of course, is Gord. They got a little battle going on. Gord, Kathy, and Steve.
And Dan. They're all in there together.
Hey, Dan from Dan Ross from Ross, Manitoba. Nice to have you on the show.
Debbie Lamoureux. Tickle. He's not ticklish. His
Patrick,
wife told me that.
Patrick, hi, everyone from Cornwall, Ontario. Mary Lou. Good evening, everyone. Mike, Brad.
Yeah, hello, Dan Ross replying to Debbie. Okay, there you go. Everybody's talking to each other already tonight.
That's good.
Wonder what's going to happen in that. Jeremy is here.
Yeah, Patricia's here.
She says tickles too.
Popping on slowly. So we want to talk about fighting back against crime and the justice system. It was an awesome night on Friday night. We had live entertainment there. We had 5 speakers, and it was Kevin from the Winnipeg Sun, Kevin Klein, who awesome speech, by the way. We had
Absolutely.
Wally
Dodridge. Dodridge.
Dodridge. We had Wally Dodridge on the show, who's running for the PC party. We had Abhi Khan, who's
also running.
So the two of them were running, and we had Rachel, who's a Winnipeg lawyer, and who else do we have on there?
You.
Oh, and we had me on there.
You big guy.
So events with
best speech of the night, I must say.
Thank you. So you got to wonder.
That was only half of it because, it was cold.
Yeah, it was cold. By the end of it all, it was all gone. And you got to wonder sometimes. There wasn't a great turnout. There's probably about 150 people there. But events with poor turnouts really make me question whether people truly care.
100%.
When it's time to stand up and drive change, it often feels like nobody really cares. And if you want to change the city and make a difference and strive for change and a better Winnipeg, less crime on the streets, less violence in the streets, I would have bet that there would have been 1,000 people there for sure. I would have bet my life on it, but that's not what happened. And unfortunately, it was a terrible turnout, in my opinion, with 150 people. But everyone who was there counted and had fun. The Cork and Flame was packed afterwards. People sat around and talked and had a really good night. And, that's something dear to my heart, fighting back against crime in the justice system. It's not something we're doing because we just want to make noise. It's something we're doing because it needs to be done. And if nothing's done about it, it's going to be the same old, same old. So it would have been really nice to have a big turnout. And I know a lot of people said they couldn't make it, and we didn't get a chance to really put it online. It was cold out, but we had bonfires going in the parking lot. People were coming in and out. It was a fun night. So for the people who were there, thank you for attending and thank you for supporting such a good cause. Unfortunately, we only have 150 people there. It doesn't show anything that we wanted to show, the power of people and the voice of people. It shows the opposite, actually. It shows that nobody really cares. And the gangsters and the crimesters can keep doing what they want to do, And that's just the way it is. That's how people feel. We definitely didn't make an impression on Scott Gillingham or our premier. If we would have had 1,000 people there, that would have made an impression. Something I got to say is thank you to the media. Every media presence was there. Everything from CBC to CTV to everyone. Everyone was there, and it was really nice to see the media coming out and supporting an event like this.
Yep.
And that means that they care. And the media these days seems to be reporting the truth, and the truth is important. And when you see the media come
When
out
it
to an
when it
event
comes
like
to
this,
when it comes to crime, they're going to talk the truth. But other topics, they've been sluggish.
and you know, I got to tell you something, and this was really exciting for me, but I'm not going to mention which media personality it was, but I can tell you that they talked to me about COVID-19, and they talked to me about the effects of the vaccines, and if I was willing to go into studio and talk to an audience about what I'm seeing as a funeral director. And you can only imagine that I was thrilled when I heard
Where you been the last 4 years?
when I heard mainstream media say, we want to do an interview with you in our studio about what you're seeing as a funeral director of vaccine injuries that you're talking
Well, you
about.
just have to watch Ask the Funeral Director to find that out. We do that every week here.
So, you know what, it's great that they're actually taking notice, and I think they're going to have to now. And this next video that we're going to play is going to talk a lot about that. And it's going to talk about vaccine injuries. It's a doctor speaking out. We're going to get into that video and come back with Ask the Funeral Director. But before you leave, I want to ask you a question. Do you believe in prayer? We'll talk about that when we get back.
All right, let's move it to this one right here.
Yeah, right. Here we go.
The countdown is on to January 20th, but there is still one very big question. Will we ever get an official investigation into the COVID-19 vaccines? The largest research study on the jab was recently republished after a successful peer review, and its findings are shocking. Here to break it all down for us is Dr. Peter McCullough. He's a renowned cardiologist and leading voice in the COVID-19 vaccine transparency. So, Dr. McCullough, in your medical opinion, how reliable is this study, and what can you tell us about it?
The study relied on autopsies that were done and actually were in the peer-reviewed literature, so they gave lots of details on the findings. All the data were extracted, they were put in to independent files, and then independently adjudicated with knowledge now what we know the vaccines cause in terms of their safety warnings. And what was determined was that about 74% of all the deaths that have occurred after vaccination that have come to autopsy, in fact, the vaccines caused the death.
So can you just break this down a little bit in terms of the context, right? And what people have been saying over the last few years. Shouldn't this shock people, or should they be surprised?
The peer-reviewed literature has now about 4,000 papers on fatal and non-fatal vaccines, disabilities, and deaths. So no, it's not a shock. The very first peer-reviewed publication of a man dying after the COVID-19 vaccine was published in the New England Journal of Medicine in the summer of 2021. And the FDA has in its warnings that the vaccines do cause heart damage or myocarditis. And I can tell you clinically as a cardiologist, myocarditis, its most common manifestation after vaccination is sudden death or cardiac arrest.
So when we look at the mRNA vaccines, where do they go from here? Do they have a future? Do you think that they get shut down at this point?
There are multiple calls to shut it down. The platform is not safe. That none of the COVID-19 vaccines are safe for human use. The World Council for Health in the UK was the first to call for that. Now Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, Doctors for COVID Ethics. There are now literally dozens of calls for the vaccines to be removed. They're published in the peer-reviewed literature. So I expect they will be taken off the market. Largely, the crisis is closed at this point in time. We can treat residual cases. The vaccines never were compelling.
Do you think the censorship is stopping? I mean, my understanding is that this study was removed from preprints less than 24 hours before it posted. So this seems like it's an ongoing problem. It seems like there's more and more data, as you're saying, where this shouldn't be shocking, as you say, and yet we're still censoring information. So what's the path forward here?
The censorship in the medical literature is significant. It comes at the editorial reviewer and the publisher level. What's unprecedented are papers being fully published, contracted, copyrighted, indexed in the National Library of Medicine, and then having them be retracted for no specific reason. That violates the Committee on Publication Ethics guidelines. And that's what's so unprecedented about this. I'm the editor of a major journal, and I have been an editor of 2 major journals in the past. And I can tell you, it's my estimate that only 1% of these papers are fully getting through and being published, only 1%. So that 4,000 papers describing all these concerning side effects is just the tip of the iceberg. And what I'm seeing in daily practice now is a steady stream of those who have vaccine, heart damage, blood clots, and disabilities, unfortunately.
We are getting closer to the Trump administration taking over. Give us your sense on what you've seen overall with the Trump cabinet picks so far.
Yeah, I can't comment on any of the physician picks because I'm a doctor myself, and that advice and consent process needs to go without any bias. Trump clearly is picking individuals that America has great aspirations for what's going to be done in these positions. I mean, let me give you some examples. Head of the FDA, people are looking for the COVID vaccines to be pulled off the market. Head of the National Institutes of Health, people in my circles want a ban on gain-of-function research done in the United States, so we don't have another deadly virus come out of a lab this time in America. For the CDC, people want the 1986 Vaccine Injury Compensation Liability Shield to be lifted, the companies to be responsible for their products, and they want vaccine mandates for children to attend school or students in school or the military. They want all mandates for vaccines to be banned. That way people can just take vaccines for personal protection and based on their own risk-benefit equation instead of being forced into it.
It will be interesting to see what happens. There's a lot of hope and a lot of momentum and energy. One thing that I'm particularly interested in political science world is as a little reconciliation or justice in terms of some of the things that have occurred, right, that we've all been complaining about over the last few years. Do you have any thought about accountability for those who were in charge of the COVID response and regime? I mean, is this something that you're concerned with?
I'm greatly concerned, and the 500-page plus report issued by Brad Wenstrup, the chair of the Coronavirus Select Subcommittee, while it found many problems with pandemic response, Americans are greatly disturbed with that report. But in that report, there is no call for special prosecutors. And people have pointed out that we should have a special prosecutor for crimes committed in the creation of SARS-CoV-2, a joint U.S.-Chinese collaboration, that there were crimes committed in the suppression of early treatment protocols to reduce hospitalization and death. Then lastly, crimes committed in the vaccine campaign, that we should have special prosecutors and name officially targets, subjects, and witnesses.
Well, Dr. Peter McCullough, thank you so much for coming on the show and making your Blaze News Tonight debut. We really appreciate your time.
Wow.
That's a Dr. Peter McCullough, and saying it the way it is, and he's right. Crimes against humanity. And if the average person did that, they would be locked up in jail already. But instead, he gets a pardon from President Biden before he leaves. What innocent person needs a pardon? I mean, pardon me for guilting a guilty person getting a pardon.
Yeah, well,
I'm going to go back to some hellos here just to catch up. Jim, good evening. Angela, the Italian, is on the show again tonight. Fernie, nice to have you on the show, Fernie. You want to read a couple, or are you good?
I do. Randolph is here. Fernie, you mentioned Gymnasium is here. Joyce is here.
Hey, where's Al Bueller,
Joycey?
the one who said he was going to come to the event?
He's watching me at home from Beausejour,
Remember,
Manitoba.
Al Bueller, I'll be there. I'll be at this event.
We missed you, Al. Where were you? The beer was cold and everything.
We got Michelle. Carl Krebs was on the show from Murdu, SD.
Murdu, South Dakota.
South Dakota.
He says.
Woo-hoo. So, yeah, a lot of people on the show tonight. Good to have everyone here. Thanks for coming. Susan Alec, You were welcome for attending, Wayne and Susan. Yeah, Susan Alec attended with
she
her
did.
husband, Wayne.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let me tell you, and Pastor John Feeks was there and said an opening prayer. What a powerful opening prayer John Feeks said. I asked you at the beginning of the show, if you believe in prayer, if you do, if you know somebody who's hurting tonight, somebody who's going through a really tough time, a struggle in their lives, family members that have hurting hearts, people that are struggling through cancers and through other difficulties in their life, say a prayer for them. That's love, and it's the best thing you could ever do for somebody in your life, a prayer. And I could use some prayers coming my way for things that are going on in our lives. But prayers are important.
Well, I can guarantee you there's a lot of people who watch the show who will be now sitting there and praying for you tonight and tomorrow night.
Just a prayer for things that happen in life that you need to deal with. But another thing, I want to thank my buddy here, Brad. And Brad and I go back a long, long time ago.
Long ways.
But Brad emceed the event and did a great job emceeing the event. Not only that, he is a trooper. Tonight he's a little bit sick, and in between scenes he's running to the couch and
lying on it,
lying down. You'd never know by his hair looking so good.
Fetal position.
But Brad, here in the studio doing the show tonight because he's a trooper, and again did a great job emceeing the show. Awesome.
Well, I appreciate that. Normally we don't pass by the video so quickly. I got to go back to that video for a minute because I think that they were talking about some of the things that are going on and that doctors are seeing. So what are you seeing, Mike?
So what I'm seeing as a funeral director is a lot of what Dr. Peter McCullough talked about. And I talked to you about this from the beginning. Probably one of the first funeral directors to ever come out. Not probably, I was the first funeral director to ever come out when I first saw what I was seeing. We're seeing exactly what he's talking about. We're seeing a lot of death caused by blood clots, myocarditis, definitely heart attacks where people are falling dead, strokes, brain bleeds. It goes on and on and on, what we are seeing and the devastation of it. And we're seeing a younger age of death that in 26 years of being a funeral director, I've never seen anybody falling dead at 35 years old. And it's happening over and over again. It is terrible what we're seeing. The baby deaths, completely out of control. People being sick, turbo cancers that they talk about are very true, and it's happening all over the place. Where you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, you have cancer of whatever. And then a week later, your whole body's infested with cancer, and 2 weeks after that, you're gone. It's something we haven't seen before. It's devastating. Doctors are talking about it. As he said, 74%. That's a big percentage. 74% of the people are dying because of the COVID vaccine. And that's through autopsy reports. Something we're not seeing in Manitoba, and we didn't see for the 2 years that we were on lockdowns and all the other things that were happening, is we didn't see the autopsies taking place that he's talking about. They were bypassing the autopsy. But now we're seeing a lot of stillbirth deaths, which is heartbreaking to see little ones passing away in their mother's womb. And we're seeing more and more of that every day. If you go into the hospital now, it's not a half a wall. It's a full wall full of baby deaths. And the hospitals now are busier than they've ever been in the last 3 or 4 years that I can ever think about. We're getting, death calls off the hook. And the hospitals are so full that they're saying, and this isn't because of a new virus that they're pretending to bring on, bird flu or whatever they're going to call it. This is the effect of what went on over the last 2 years, vaccination. And you're going to hear more and more about this. More is coming out. Trump, in the last little while, has reinstated all the soldiers who refused to get vaccinated and back paid them, and now they're back in the U.S. military. So when the President of the United States stands up and makes a bold move like that, that change needs to be made, and he's speaking by example. And I think he's going to be doing that with a lot of people that were tossed aside and saying, you're not good enough for humanity. You did get vaccinated. You're not considered a human being. If you look at what they did to the world, they really divided us into two. They divided us.
They tried.
And for a lot of people, it worked. The hate. And we'll go one step further. What am I seeing you're saying as part of this COVID-19 mission? We're seeing an outbreak of mental health issues. We're seeing suicides at the highest rate we've ever seen them at. And the drugs are completely out of control in this city. And if you look at drugs and if you look at mental health, those are the two main contribute to crime in the city. So when people need to get high, they do whatever it takes, breaking into your house, holding a knife to your neck, stabbing you if they have to. They will do whatever it takes to get their next hit. And that becomes problem number 2, is the amount of drugs that we have rolling on our streets right now, the amount of gang activity we have in our streets, the amount of violence. And that's why this event was so important to my heart, because my brother Kyriakis was murdered in front of his own restaurant right here in the city of Winnipeg, a place he grew up in, a place he loved, a place that he stood up for, a place that he fed families who were hungry at, who was an icon in his community, a leader who stood up for change and made sure that everything was right in the place where he worked, in the community he worked in. This year, of course, we followed through with his mission of feeding families, and we fed a whole bunch of families in St. James who needed food, and we made sure that they got it. And we gave toys to kids who didn't have toys, and we did that because that was Kyriakis' heart, and we wanted to make sure that his heart and his dreams lived on in that community for a long, long time.
100%.
So sad to lose somebody so vibrant, somebody that cared for change. Al Bueller says, "How's the food at the Cork and Flame?" Well, Al, maybe you should come down.
He was
check it out.
He got caught last week with some bad weather, a little bit late getting home from work. He tried dudes, but sorry. It's okay, Al, we're fine.
And I talked with
Kathy Tickle had a comment up there that I do not read this out loud, but I swear that I'm not beat red because of it. I'm just probably going, what? Kathy, where do you come up with that? That's like a moment. Scroll up, you'll laugh too for a second.
Says, Trump took Fauci's security team away from him.
Yeah, he did.
And he should.
Absolutely.
And where's Kathy saying? Let's
right
look
there.
over here.
Put it on no, shut! Don't be saying that.
And I get, everybody can read that, right?
I know. I know. That's why I'm sitting here going, I'm not red from that. I'm really sweating.
Freddie says, I'm honored. I get notifications this week. Well, we love having you in the show. You are the show. If it wasn't for you folks that tune in, once a week, there wouldn't be any show. Brad's going to read something.
One of the special programs that we use to produce the show actually has upgraded and given us more options to make sure that notifications get sent properly and all that sort of stuff. So thanks a lot for being on, and that's great. We'll definitely keep it going.
Kathy, notice
pop
no
is gone.
Coke.
No pop.
We got natural spring water here.
Natural spring.
Brad's going to read something from Kevin Klein's article
You want that?
in the Winnipeg Free Press. Important to know what's going on in the city. And as he reads this, I'm going to tell you one thing. Scott Gillingham, total abuse of power. And the citizens of Winnipeg should be really disturbed at what's going on, the tax increase and everything else. And I'm glad Kevin Klein, who's an ex-councillor and knows the ropes at City Hall, is now the owner of the Winnipeg Sun. And he's definitely making a difference. And I love what he's doing. It kind of reminds me of a Trump. Saying it the way it is.
Telling the truth, right?
Yeah, and then Kathy says, I'm proud of you, Mike. Hey, Kathy, check this out. That's in the background. I'm not drinking. I just thought I'd bring it up when you mention that. I want to mention something really special right now. So next week on the show, on Wednesday's Ask the Funeral Director, you don't want to miss this. It is going to be Winnipeg Sun, not Winnipeg Free Press. Yeah, I know that, Carl. Thanks for clarifying that. So next week we're going to have, I always say his name wrong, but Dodrich. So Wally Dodrich is going to be on Ask the Funeral next, blah, 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 on Ask the Funeral Director next week. So you want to join us for Wally. He's competing against Abi Khan to be the leader of the PC party, and he's going to be right here in the studio with us. Next Wednesday night, it is going to be exciting. What do you think, Brad?
I guarantee it is. We're going to have him here, and that'll give everybody a chance to kind of get a handle on what's happening with the Progressive Conservative Party here in Winnipeg and Manitoba. And I think it'll give opportunity to learn about the party a bit better, learn about what each candidate stands for, and then you can start making decisions as to where the future heads, because every time you elect somebody into anywhere now in Canada, we have to make certain that we're doing the right thing for all of us. And it's going to take some very concerted effort to make sure that you're choosing the right individual. And you need to search and do the homework to get each platform accurate within a realm of saying that I do want to vote for that guy. I do believe what he's saying, and I do believe that he's the guy to get it done.
And that's why it's important to have him on the show here, where you can ask questions on the screen. You can send us questions beforehand if you'd like for next week's Ask the Funeral Director. Ask the Funeral Director at gmail.com, or you can put them on the screen tonight. And then we'll get Wally to answer your questions. He'll answer your questions live too. It is going to be an interesting show, and we'll also give Abi Khan a chance to come on the show if he would like to. And we get both parties on here so you can make an informed decision. Before we go any further in the show, I just want to say one thing. I want to stop and say thank you to my wife Sharon and my son Josh for your patience, for your love, and your support over this last year. I know it's been a tough year for you because of all the work I've been doing and away from home quite often. Just want to let you know that I love you dearly, and I thank you for your care, your understanding, and most of all, your patience.
You guys, that conversation has to end right now, Kathy.
What's going on there? We're trying to Kathy Daigle. Yeah.
No, don't talk about it. Just let it go.
Read. Okay, you could read the article now.
Okay, I'll read the article now. That's probably the best place to go. All right, here we go. It's a sad day for Winnipeg. The city's budget digs deeper into your pockets with more to come. A column written by Kevin Klein in the Winnipeg Sun says Mayor Scott Gillingham and his supporters on council just made life more expensive for you. Gillingham's massive record-breaking property tax hike. Not to forget the new 9/11 tax levy that they want to charge you was pushed through today with the backing of councillors Evan Duncan, Janice Lukes, as well as Debbie Sharma, Sean Dobson, Matt Allard, Jeff Broady, Ross Eady, Vivian Santos, Jason Schreier, and Marcus Chambers. Not one of them showed any real effort to find savings or rein in spending. Instead, they stuck you with the bill. The spin was out in full force during the budget deliberations. Gillingham talked about controlling spending on cutting expenses, but where were the details? No timeline, no real plan, just empty words. Meanwhile, he justified higher taxes using taxpayer-funded poll that isn't real quantitative data. It was more than a convenient excuse to take more of your hard-earned money. There's a lot more to this story, and I would love to read it, but I am too sick to do that and continue on. As you can see, I'm going into a mode of dripping wet sweat. So I'm going to quickly jump off the show. Mike's going to continue on, and I'll be back in just a minute. Sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, maybe you should give me my first question, and then I can go from there.
It's right there.
Do you guys think that I can get DNA done, DNA test done from my mom's cremated remains? Is there DNA left? So that is a good question. A lot of people ask that question on the show and in person. People always come in and they want to do a DNA test or sample, and they ask if they can get it from cremated remains. So you need to know cremated remains goes through a really, really hot process, and temperatures reach 16 to 1800 degrees, and getting DNA from that is almost impossible. People always ask, too, are cremated remains safe? Are they sanitized? Can I get sick from touching cremated remains? The answer to that is no. Cremated remains are the most sanitized thing that you could ever hold in your hands because they've been through that heat process. So everything that needs to be killed is killed during the process of cremation. There is one thing that survives the process of cremation, and that is the human version of mad cow disease. And that is something that we can't get rid of. So, yes. Next question on there is, can skeletal remains be treated? David wants to know. Can skeletal remains be cremated? That's what the question is. So another question that we get all the time when people bring, take somebody out from the grave years later, and they decide that they want to intern a person, or cremate the person and place them somewhere else. So they ask, can skeletal remains are found somewhere, can they be cremated? So the question to that is yes. Skeletal remains can be cremated, David, and we do that quite often. As a matter of fact, when somebody is found years later, what happens is they bring the bone structure of the human body to us, and we have that, being cremated, and then you get the cremated remains back. Going to go into the next question. Oh, look, Brad, get some horse paste. Man, the comment section's on fire. Love it. And again, for the people that attended Friday night's event, I know a lot of people are coming on now. Thank you for attending. 150 people. Wish there was more. It was a great event. We had all kinds of things happening, and the best of it all afterwards was getting together in the Cork and Flame, and it was just a time of fellowship. Everyone just doing their own thing, having fun, and just enjoying as the night went on. And it went on to the wee hours of the morning. People stayed. So glad to have had you there. Next question. Just wondering, what would you do after someone passes away? Burial or cremation, and why? So they're asking my opinion. Melanie's asking my question on what should they do, burial or cremation, when somebody passes away. That is a tough question. That is a personal question that you would have to figure out on your own. So we always guide families. We'll tell you the difference of what cremation is, what the cremation process is, what happens during cremation, and then we'll tell you what happens during burial, and we'll go through the everything we do for a family that loses a loved one and what it takes to bury somebody. So I could tell you that burial is probably, I would say maybe 10 times the price of a cremation. Cremation is fast, it's simple, it's effective. The good thing about cremation is it's not time sensitive, meaning you can have a service 3 months down the line. You could take the cremated remains back to your home country, whether it's Greece, Italy, another place in the world, and you don't have to bear the expense. You can bring the cremated remains as a carry-on. So that's good. With traditional burial, you have a very short period of time from the time of death to the time of service and then burial afterwards. Yes, we can embalm for long-term preservation, restoration, and sanitization. But the bottom line is it's a short period of time. Not only that, when you're doing a traditional burial, you need funeral cemetery expenses, which are really expensive. And the average cemetery cost now seems to be, over the $6,000-$7,000 range, making you buy vaults and all kinds of things that you probably don't need. So if you want something less expensive, obviously cremation is the way to go. If you want something more expensive, traditional burial. And a lot of people take it to biblical thoughts at that point. And they say, well, Jesus didn't get cremated. He was, entombed, buried. So it's a personal, choice that you have to make. We can only guide you. And that's what funeral directors are there for. Never allow a funeral director to tell you how it's going to be and what you need to do and how much money you need to spend. That's up to you. And we're there to guide you, to protect you, answer your questions. If we're doing more than that, then we're not doing our jobs. Are you good, Task? Are you back?
I'm back. Oh, that was harsh. So in your opinion, what's the most important thing a mother and father could do for their children prior to passing away, Danielle asks.
So Danielle, that question is like a home run. So the most important thing that you could do prior to your passing is 3 things. 1, have a directive to the doctors. So if something was to happen to you, you were to get into a head-on collision, you hit your head on the cement, something happens to you where you can't think for yourself, and you want certain things done to your body when you're not able to live or if you're on life support. So a directive to doctors tells the doctors what you would like done. This is not, I remember being called into a hospital for a friend of mine, probably about 15 years ago, 20 years ago maybe, when I just became a funeral director. And he was a good friend. We grew up together, and he was on life support. And the family said to me, Mike, tell us what we should do. Should we take him off life support? And it was a terrible position to be put in as a friend and then as a funeral director. There's a lot of things you think that they think, oh, well, he's going to make money. He's a funeral director. He doesn't really care. I gave him my true opinion, and that was the longer you keep somebody on life support, the less chance you have of getting a body to look presentable because of what happens on life support. So I told him it was a family decision, something they had to do on their own, and they eventually pulled the plug, and he passed away 15 minutes after being taken off life support. So a directive to doctors is really important. I want you to know all the things I'm talking about. You could go to our website, voyagefuneralhomes.com. It's absolutely free. Our whole will kit is absolutely free. Second is you need a power of attorney. Now, when you're selecting a power of attorney, remember this person has a lot of power. You're giving that person the power to speak on your behalf. They can sell your assets. They can sell your cars. They can sell your house if they have to. They can make some pretty drastic decisions, including getting into your bank account and spending some of your money. So sometimes the best thing to do is get two people as power of attorneys. So you have two people making decisions at the same time. So you would think that would be more of a rational decision instead of a last minute choice. So first thing, directive to doctors. Second thing, power of attorney. And the most important thing that you need is a will. If you don't have a will, it's a catastrophe and a disaster to your family. And doing a will is a gift of love, believe it or not. It sounds silly, but it tells the family all your wishes. There's less fighting that takes place, less stress in the family. It's peace of mind when you walk out of that funeral home and you make your final arrangements and you pre-plan that. That's the fourth thing. So 1, directive to doctors. 2, power of attorney. 3, a will. A will is a must. You have to do it. If you don't have a will and you have a family, you need to get either to a lawyer or go to our website and download a will. We even have an emergency will that you can do that's good.
The whole will kit.
We have a whole will kit, but you can, if somebody's in the hospital and they don't have a will, in that will kit, we have an emergency will kit, which allows you to get that person to sign it as long as they're in the right frame of mind. And that's a standing will with a couple of witnesses. And finally, if you want to make things really good, pre-plan your funeral. So there's days that I deal with families that have pre-planned their funerals. They come in, and it's so easy in the family. It takes the burden and the stress and the possibility of being taken advantage of by an aggressive salesperson. You come in, you put your final wishes on paper. We also have a wishes and memories book in there. The wishes and memories book tells your family what all your wishes are, what your favorite color was, what your favorite thing you did in your life was, the favorite place you went. If you could do it all over again, what would you do? There's so many questions in there. There's also a place where you can write your own obituary that you can. There's a family tree in there. There's so much in that wishes and memories book. It's absolutely free. Something like this at a lawyer would cost you anywhere from $400 to $1,000. Go to voyagefuneralhomes.com, download it, fill it out, get it signed, get it witnessed by a couple of people, and it's a legal will in the province of Manitoba. Those are the 4 things I would do if you're a family member or a mom and dad trying to make things a little easier for your family.
Going through that memory part is really hard. I tried it with my parents, and it's difficult. There's a lot of things to talk about. There's a lot of things that you wish you were there for that they have memories on, and you just weren't.
Yeah, and that wishes and memories book. I remember my dad when he was alive 14 years ago. I had him fill one of these. My dad, Mike, I don't write the English. I don't do this garbage. You get somebody to do it for me. Dad, you got to answer the questions. You get somebody to come here, I answer the questions. Okay. So with my dad, I brought a lawyer in, and the lawyer sat with my dad and asked him all these questions. So when my dad passed away, me and my brother Nick and brother Peter and Kyriakis, we all went through this book. And it was so cool to learn things that we never knew about our dad.
Yeah, that's right.
And Mary says, does the will need to be notarized? No. In Manitoba, the only thing you need is 2 signatures and the person's signature who's doing the will. And you could get it notarized.
What's a holograph will?
You know what? I'm not certain what a holograph will is. We'd have to look that up.
Well, for next week.
Yeah.
Great. We
Good
love
question for next week.
we love questions like that. Mike, how long does it take to complete mortuary school? Because you went to school, right?
Well, yeah. Went to school.
What, a year, 2 years?
So mortuary school is 2 years.
At Red River?
I went to the University of Manitoba. They had the course at that university
Right.
at that point. They don't now. But if you're thinking of getting into mortuary school, I need to tell you this. What you want to do first is you want to get hired by a licensed funeral home. And you want to do an apprenticeship program. So what we do is we take somebody on with us and we tell them, you have to work for the funeral home for at least 1 year to see if this is your niche and this is what you want to do. Not only that, for us to see if you can handle it and do the job that we expect you to do and see if you're compassionate and caring enough. So what happens is once you stay with the funeral home for a year, we pay for your schooling. The bad thing is a lot of people go to school.
Am I too old?
No, you'd be a good funeral director. A lot of people go to school right away, and they take that year and they pay all this money and then the year ends, and they don't have a funeral home to work with, so they can't continue on with the course. So that's the catch, folks. If you're wanting to be a funeral director, make sure you get hired by a funeral home, then go through school. So then after you finish your 2 years, my dad said, Mike, you're going to be a bum when I was a music man.
I'd throw this out there just because somebody caught my attention over here.
Sure.
They said, have your loved ones tell their stories in a tape recorder. And
Yeah.
while a tape recorder is interesting, I was going to mention that
video.
you're more than welcome to get a hold of me, and we'll do a
Yeah,
video
come
here at
into
the
the
studio, and we'll make it a real video.
So a lot of people do that. We've had
Yeah.
people, gentlemen or people or families record their final wishes on a cell phone, and then the family gets that afterwards. They get to hear their dad or mom talking about their final wishes,
Right.
which is really cool because the expression of your parents and how they're saying things and the true meaning of what's
That's
coming
right.
from their heart.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
For sure. So a question next is, my father is at Riverview Health Center fighting stage 4 cancer. We're sorry to hear that. Dad has been watching your show for 2 years. Well, thanks for watching. He would be honored to meet you personally and go through his final wishes. So that's something that we were just talking about, which is great. I know you're a busy man. Is there something you would consider doing, Brad? Well, Brad wants to know.
Oh, Brad.
Brad and Brad. Well, Brad,
Brad.
guess what? Brad says yes, I can help.
Well, I'm honored. I'm honored that your father has been watching Ask the Funeral Director for 2 years.
That's great.
That's amazing, and sorry that your family is going through the loss of your father in stage 4 cancer and stuff. That is terrible. So because your dad watched the show for 2 years, and
Year 2 is better,
and he
wasn't
wants
it?
to meet me.
Year 2 was better, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
okay, I know.
Year 2 is better. New hosts, better hosts,
There you go.
better show.
There you go.
Nice background too.
Yes.
So I would love to come out and meet your father and help him with his final wishes. So if you could contact me at Voyage Funeral Home at 204-668-3151 or send an email to voyage@mts.net. I will reply and I will come and see your father personally, and I'll spend some time with him, and I'll even do the Wishes and Memories book with him. So I love spending time. There's just something special about being in a room with somebody that you know is going to pass away.
That's right.
And you get to spend time with them, and it's a privilege. And they get to share stories with you about things they did in their life and things they accomplished and raising a family. And I think it's amazing. And I get to spend time with people who are struggling with death all the time. And it always touches my heart. It always breaks my heart to see that this person is going to leave the world. But some people have so much peace in their heart, especially when they believe in life after death. And one thing I talk to about people who are struggling with stage 4 cancer, alone in the hospital, sometimes no family, is, what do you think is going to happen after you die? Like, where do you think your soul is going to go? Do you believe in life after death? And a lot of times I'll say a prayer with that individual and then ask them to call me whenever they want, if they want to talk, because it's always good to be a person who could be there for other people.
Okay, so Bernice now has a great question. Bernice asks, can you explain to me what a living funeral is? And have you directed a living funeral?
Well, Bernice, today's your lucky day. A living funeral is the coolest funeral I've ever seen. Some people think
Does the
it's-
dude sit up in the casket and go,
no.
hey, party's on, let's go! Good to see you guys!
Hi, everybody!
I'm back!
A living funeral is actually the opposite. So what that is somebody is alive at their funeral. So basically what they're doing is they're inviting guests over by saying a
So
celebration.
everybody's crying in the room, and then I
Everyone's
walk
crying
in
in
at the
the room.
back?
So what we did
Hey, I'm here still. What are you guys crying for?
at our Kirkfield location, the person put an obituary in the paper saying a celebration of life will be held at, and then there was about 250 people there. And then just as we were to start the service, the pastor asked everyone to stand,
The band walked in.
and we brought the person in his wheelchair.
Oh, yeah?
And we placed them right in front where you would normally
That's
place
awesome.
a casket.
That's awesome.
And I asked him why he wanted to do that. And he said, well, I want to meet the people for the final time, and I want to hug them and kiss them, and I want to hear that they love me, and I want to hear stories about, stories that they want to share, and I want to hear what the pastor's going to say about me, and I want to enjoy the food that I'm going to pay for. And in this case, this gentleman got an alcohol permit. So they had drinks downstairs afterwards, and they toasted, and they had wine, and they shared stories. And what this person ended up doing afterwards is after he had his living funeral, which was awesome, by the way, the whole time it was just a special kind of feeling. And some people might say, well, that's morbid.
Yeah, well,
Well, it
not
wasn't for
really.
this gentleman. And
Not
then
really.
a short while later, after he got to say his goodbyes and hear all these stories and feel the love from people. I mean, when you're dead, people come to your funeral and you never know if they were there, right? So, they're at the funeral now, and you get to see him, and you get to see who came. And nobody knew that he was going to be at his funeral, right? So people were coming there to pay their respects to their mom. Jim says, movie idea, My Big Fat Greek Funeral. Yeah, I should talk to Nia Vardalos about that. We're friends. I should say, Nia, why don't we do my big Greek fat funeral? I'll be the funeral director,
I'm seeing millions of dollars in your eyes, man.
You're on the big screen, playing the roles of funeral director, my big fat Greek funeral, Greek Orthodox Church involved. I see a movie coming.
Sounds like a great idea.
Would you come to the movie and watch it? So anyways, that's what a living funeral is. And then after this gentleman did all that, he said to me, I want to say hi to all my friends. I want to say goodbye to all my friends. I want to have some laughs. I want to cry. And a few days later, he took the MAID program.
Oh,
And there was no funeral after that.
that's tragic.
So it's something he wanted. He was struggling with pain, but he got his way. And the final thing that they played at that funeral was Frank Sinatra's I Did It My Way.
That's fantastic.
So it's a memorable story that I share because it's so good. More and more people are doing living funerals. So when you read Living Funeral, that's what it is. Al Bueller says, life after death. When you die, isn't it going to sleep and never waking up again? Oh, Al, you're so silly. Al, life after death is leaving this world and going into the heavenly world, being
next
with
world.
your creator, the nice world where there's no violence and no crime, where you get a new body and a new everything. It's a new beginning. Get to meet your friends, your loved ones. I talked to somebody about this the other day, and you're going to find this interesting. Death is sort of like this. You take somebody to the airport, you're all at the airport, you're crying and you're hugging each other and you're saying goodbye, and then the person gets on the airplane, and then you're watching the airplane leave, and the airplane flies away and slowly disappears in the air. But on the other side, there's people waiting and happy to see you and welcoming you to the other side and hugging you and kissing you. And you get to meet your brothers and your sisters and your mom and your dad, your grandpas and grandmas and your loved ones. That's almost like death. There's two sides to it. Interesting, hey?
Absolutely, it is.
Kimberly says, you could be in their next movie, Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, he wants to be the funeral
I
director
want to be
really
the funeral
bad.
director.
Not to mention.
Actually, I do Nia Vardalos' dad's funeral a couple years ago. So,
Did you really, eh?
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, what's an important piece of advice you'd give a grieving family? Hope wants to know.
Hope. Oh, that's a great name. I love that name, Hope. So Hope, this is what it is giving a family hope, and to making sure that family doesn't rush through the grieving process. I always tell families there's not a right way to grieve or a wrong way to grieve. Grieving lasts for a long time, sometimes years. I talk about this all the time, and it helps me. My brother died a year ago, and I'm still grieving. And there's times I'll be, driving down the street, and I think of something that was special between me and my brother, and all of a sudden tears will start running down my face. That's grieving. Grieving, sometimes you say things you don't want to say that you don't mean. Sometimes you burst out in anger. Sometimes you burst out in laughter. Grieving has a whole different meaning, and you just got to go through it. It's like a roller coaster ride. It's up, it's down, and finally one day you get to the end of the roller coaster ride and you're able to get off. But even then, it's not over. Even then, you'll cry and you'll think of special memories. So take your time to grieve. Don't rush grieving, and don't let anyone say to you, which I hear quite often, it's been a year. Aren't you over it yet? No, I'm not over it yet.
Yeah.
And I won't be over it. So you know what? Why don't you off?
All right.
Apple says, I wonder how old you were when you got into heaven. Don't know.
Don't know either. 9:49. We've got a couple minutes left to get to a couple last questions tonight. Mike, Jeff says for traditional burials, what's the difference between a sealed casket and a non-sealed casket?
Good question too.
Like a lock on it?
No, so sealed casket is, a weird thing happened. Oh, you weren't on this service.
No.
So a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to tell you about a weird story, a creepy story. So we were doing this service at a Catholic church. So just before we left the morgue, I did my final touches on the deceased so he would look very presentable for the viewing and his family. As you know, Brad, that's what I do. And then I personally closed the casket, and we placed the casket into the hearse. And then we got to the funeral. The casket's at the back of the church, Catholic service. And then when we brought in procession the casket to the front, they wanted the casket to be facing the people. I went to open the casket. It was the weirdest thing ever. Things that make you go, the casket was locked.
You couldn't open it?
It was locked, and I'm like, how can this happen? I'm the one who closed it. I didn't lock it. You need a key to lock a casket. So Anthony was with us, one of the guys who works at the funeral. And I'm like, Anthony, you need to run to the hearse and get the key to the car. And it worked out because the person who was singing, I was standing in front of the casket. Anthony took off. People didn't know what was really going on. Maybe a little confusion. Me trying to get this casket open, and I'm almost lifting the casket up. I was using so much force. But Anthony gets back before the song finishes, and we were able to open the casket for that viewing. But, things like that, you kind of wonder, why did that happen?
How did it lock?
Maybe the person didn't want to have a
If you
viewing.
needed a key to lock it, who locked it? Holy cow, that's crazy.
What was that? Did I bypass that whole question, or?
No, that was.
Yeah. So sealed casket is when we shut the casket. At the end of the casket, there's a place where you put the key in and you turn it, and then there's seals all around the casket. So basically, what that does is seal the casket airtight, almost
like a refrigerator,
like an airplane.
Okay.
So like you're in an airplane, and the casket is completely sealed. No water, no dirt, no earth can get into that casket. It's completely airtight. So when it gets into the ground, nothing gets in the way of the burial. It's completely natural. And then a non-sealed casket, well, as soon as you place it in the ground, automatically water will start seeping into the casket, and everything else that's in the earth seeps into the casket. So that's the difference between sealed and not sealed. And now the question is sealed.
We are expecting the passing of our loving mother. I have no clue on how to write an obituary. Can you please guide me? Is one of the questions that this individual has.
Let's answer that question first. So how do you write an obituary? I'll guide you right over this channel here. So basically go to the Winnipeg Free Press and go to the passages page, and there's thousands and thousands of obituaries on there. And go through each obituary, pick and choose words and things other people said, and that will be a template for you to write an obituary that's going to be good for your family.
That's a good place to start. Would you also recommend AI now that AI has come around?
I don't know if AI can write an obituary because they would have to know about your loved one. So I think going to an actual obituary page would actually allow you to see different obituaries and
get the words, the perspective.
Take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and put it in there. So I think it's before we go any further,
okay,
you got to like and share the show.
Yes, you do.
Like and share the show.
Please.
Come on, people.
Please, help us out.
Please.
We're trying so hard to stay on socials everywhere, but, we get banned, we get shadow banned.
Did you say that word again?
Just the banned part. Notice two different tones.
Next question, next part of that question.
All right, my family would like to split our mother's cremated remains into 4 separate packages. Should the body be kept together as one for a resurrection, or is it okay to divide cremated remains as per requested?
That's a question I get all the time. I'm not a pastor.
I was going to say, wouldn't you ask a father that or a pastor?
But a lot of people, like the Catholic Church, believes. A lot of other people do believe the cremated remains, the body should stay as one. So I think about that all often, and I think, well, how about if a person, fell into the ocean, and a shark ate the person, or a person that burnt in a fire, or somebody was maybe brutally murdered and cut up, and body parts were everywhere. Does it really matter? I don't think so. I think the resurrection means that you'll be lifted from the grave in your soul, in your spirit, not your body, because your body, you're going to get a new body in heaven. The Bible's clear on that, and there will be no more pain and no more suffering. So I think it's a personal choice. My personal opinion is I would like to see the cremated remains stay together as one, in an urn. But other people want to keep a little bit of dad at home, and like they want to do, they want to split it in four. So the only opinion and advice I can give you is maybe talk to your pastor, maybe talk to the siblings and see how you all feel about it, because afterwards you got to deal with what you did. So there's always, the afterthought. So
That's right.
When Brad and I were both coaching, and we have a 48-hour rule, and that 48-hour rule means we don't talk to the parents, or
They don't talk to us.
they don't talk to us until 48 hours passes by. And a lot of times that heals a lot of the problems, because an angry father says, Brad, you didn't put my kid on the ice. What's wrong with you? I pay money. 48 hours later, he's realized that his son wasn't playing the best hockey, and his son isn't going to make the NHL. And maybe we should just calm things down, and next time he sees you, he brings you a coffee instead of yelling at you.
Hell no. You go right after that coach. You give it to him, and you let him know your kid deserves to have a chance. People don't talk to me that way. My team does not. My parents will not speak to me that way, because every kid on that team deserves a chance to play. Of
course.
Every kid has a job to do on that team, and
Of course.
every kid gets an opportunity to do their job. So that's how I coach. But I have heard of people with those kinds of troubles before, but I can't be in that category anymore. I'm past all of that. We have open discussions, and they're really good ones, because you know what? At the end of the day, I say to them this. I say, and this works with everything in life, so it's kind of interesting. But if I actually make sure that I'm talking to you and telling you the truth about your kid, and I'm willing to listen to you about what you think is the truth about your kid, together we're hopefully going to rectify this, because we both want the best for the kid. That's the biggest goal of it all, right, for example. But it's about understanding that to get there, take that dad's opinion, work it into your own opinion, put it together, and come out with a solution that helps not only the dad, but the kid and yourself as a coach.
Exactly.
Simple.
I agree. That's
Simple.
You're a good coach, Brad.
I try to be.
A good person, too. Part 3 of that question.
Well, no, this is a 3-part question.
Oh,
this
this
next
is
one.
different.
So, no, yes,
Okay.
don't do that. Number 1 is removing a pacemaker in a surgical procedure. Is it a surgical procedure to remove a pacemaker?
People ask that all the time, and some funeral homes will charge you to remove a pacemaker and tell you it is a surgical procedure. It's not. It's a simple incision that I can do probably in another 2 minutes, where you make an incision, you pull out the pacemaker, you cut the wires, and you only have to do that during cremation. If it's a traditional burial, we leave the pacemaker where it is.
So next question. Our mother's wishes are that her 3 daughters come into the funeral home and dress a mom. As well, their 3 daughters do the hair and the cosmetics. Would you allow them to follow through with their final wishes?
So if those are your mom's final wishes, we would allow you to come in and
Be a part?
be a part. No, they could dress.
They'll do that?
Yeah, we'll
What
help
about
them.
the makeup?
They could do the cosmetics too. So we basically sit back at that point and allow them. So it's really important that a family gets a chance to be a part of their loved one's funeral. So if they want to come in and dress their mom, that's something they'll never forget. If they want to come in and do mom's hair and cosmetics, it's something that will always be truly in their hearts, something nobody can ever take away from them. So it's something we encourage. So if it's something that your mom wants, come on in and do that. It'll help you. It'll make you feel better. And it'll be one of the final things you do for your mom.
And part 3 of this final question, my father and brother would like to drive the hearse to the cemetery. Is that possible, Phyllis says?
Oh, we give a little bit, and they want to hold up.
Take
So
it.
we get a lot of families that ask if they could drive the hearse. So it would be probably an honor for dad and the brother to drive the hearse together, knowing that it's mom's last ride. So we would guide them on how to drive a hearse and precautions they need to take. My friend Tim Richards passed away, but his mom died. So he phones me up and he goes, Mike, I want to drive the hearse for my mom. Tim was a tow truck driver. Everybody knew him. Really good guy. Had lots of experience driving. So I said, Tim, I'm going to let you drive the hearse for your mom's funeral. So Tim followed us in procession. After the funeral, I got back to the funeral home, and I went on to Facebook, and what do I see? Tim Richards with a selfie of him and his mom's casket in the background driving the hearse.
would you do that?
Peace. Yeah,
So you would
of
let
course
somebody
we
drive the
would
hearse,
do that.
eh?
Yeah, as long as they would follow direction and make sure that they
I don't
do
get
what we
to, I don't
need
get to
do.
work that day?
Drive? No, Brad gets the day off. Let's make sure Brad doesn't work that day. You can drive the hearse.
There you go. Well, Mike, that is it. We've reached that magical hour. You know that?
Don't we have another question? One more? I think.
Well, you want the last question tonight?
Let's just do it. Yeah.
Okay, as you deal with death every day, Mike, do you ever think about your own mortality and your final wishes? And finally, as a funeral director, do you have a will in place yourself? Vanna says.
So Vanna, when you work in a funeral home, there's not a day that doesn't go by that you don't think about your own mortality. And when you're at thousands of funeral service,
He's right.
It
He's
makes you think.
1,000% right.
It makes you really think about what you want done when you die. Sometimes I also think about, I wonder how many people would attend my funeral. There's things like that run in your mind. I wonder what people are going to say about me in the obituary. I wonder what people are going to think of Mike and what kind of life he led and what kind of person he was. So when you're working in funeral service, you quite often think about your own mortality, your family's mortality, and it's just common because you're around that death industry. And as far as a will goes, yes, I have a will, and I encourage you to get a will. We thank you for joining us for another edition of Ask the Funeral Director. Ask the Friendly Funeral Director. God bless you.
You're friendly.
Friendly. God bless you and your families. Take care of yourselves and each other. Please like, share, and follow the show. Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Mike.
You're a hero.
Good job, buddy. You too. Good night, everybody.
Good night.